Hello everyone, I hope you're all well and welcome to episode 110 of the Layton Fitness Podcast. Now in this specific episode we'll be discussing just how accurate do you need to be with regards to your daily nutrition targets, so your daily calorie and macronutrient targets, so protein, carbohydrates, fats and calorie targets. And this is a common question that comes up when working with new clients, and I think this is a big issue because I think a lot of people believe that they need to be hitting their daily targets as accurately as possible. And even though you want to be striving for this, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to get within a couple of grams of each individual target, because that's not really sustainable. So within this podcast, I'm going to give you some buffer ranges to work towards when you're striving to meet your daily targets. And this should really help dramatically because it just gives you a little bit of room to play with, as opposed to being very strict on yourself and trying to get within a few grams, which isn't sustainable. And if you go over that specific target, you're going to get discouraged and annoyed at yourself, whereas it doesn't really need to be as accurate as that. It needs to be relatively accurate, but as long as you're in the ballpark of all of the targets, you should be absolutely fine. So first of all, we just need to look at the most important factors with regards to nutrition within the fat loss phase. I just want to discuss fat loss within this specific podcast, and we can discuss muscle building within a different podcast. And as such, the daily protein target and the daily calorie figures are the most important factors with regards to nutrition within the fat loss phase. Our goal is to create the energy deficit, so we're burning more calories than we're consuming, so then we can create the energy deficit needed for fat loss. Protein is there to preserve lean muscle mass, and then calories, carbohydrates and fats are being slowly decreased over time to bust through plateaus to continue creating the energy deficit needed for fat loss. But as I mentioned, protein total calories are the most important factors, and therefore let your personal preference dictate the carb to fat ratio. It really does not matter within the context of a fat loss phase, as long as that protein targets match and as long as the calorie figure is met. It doesn't matter whether you're having more carbs or less fats to reach that calorie figure. Now, that being said, I would still suggest having at least 20% of your calorie figures from dietary fat. The reason why is fat is important for hormone production, but once you have that 20% approximately in place, you can then let your personal preference dictate the carb to fat ratio to meet that daily calorie figure. So my suggestion with regards to these buffers is to get within approximately 10 grams of the protein target, and then to get within approximately 50 calories of your daily calorie figure. If you can do that, that would be absolutely superb, and that is relatively sustainable. It's going to take a little bit of practice to get to this point, but within 10 grams of the protein target and within 50 calories of the calorie target is really what you should be aiming for. So you may be wondering, what if you have a bad day? Let's be honest, we all have those days where we go over those calorie totals and the protein totals. Now, you've got a couple of options here. One, you can just get back on track as normal the next day, and that's pretty much what I suggest to most clients. One day within the context of a extended fat loss phase over many weeks isn't going to make too much of a difference. That would be my first suggestion. That's probably the suggestion I'd make to 90% of people. However, if you want to be a little bit cute about it, what you could actually do is tally up how many calories you need to consume over the course of the week, over the course of 7 days, to meet those daily calorie and protein totals. Once you know that target, if you go over your calorie figures within a particular day, what you can do is basically pull back the calorie target within the next day, for example, and basically just focus on getting the weekly totals where they should be. So that's a little bit more complex, and I'd only suggest that if you're very experienced with tracking your food intake. If you've done this for an extended period of time, if you went over your targets on one day, you could ultimately pull them back the next day, and then the net totals over the course of the week would be the same. However, as I mentioned, for most individuals, because one day within the grand scheme of things over an extended fat loss phase isn't going to make that much difference, it's more about the accumulation of bad days back to back that can cause problems. I wouldn't be too concerned, and therefore just get back on track as normal the following day. Now, one final tip with regards to tracking your food intake, something I do personally, something I recommend to all of my clients, is using the last meal or mini snack meal of the day to make up the net difference of any targets you're short of. This is a great tip because instead of trying to micromanage micromanage each individual meal. So for example, you've got your daily totals and then you're splitting up your calorie figures into 4 meals, which takes a lot of time. My suggestion is to plug all your meals into MyFitnessPal as the day goes along, and then prior to your last meal you can just look on MyFitnessPal and just look, what have I got left to make up to meet the net difference, to meet those daily totals? What do I need to consume to meet the protein target and calorie figures? And then that last meal is just tailored to make up the net difference of those daily totals. And that's a great tip because it allows you to meet those targets consistently, but you're not micromanaging each individual meal. Because as I mentioned, the real key factor with regards to nutrition within the fat loss phase, the most important factor is those daily totals, the daily protein and calorie totals. So hopefully that's been useful. Thank you very much for listening. If you've still yet to download my free ebook, How to Set Up a Nutrition Plan, if you go to James Layton, Layton fitness.co.uk, you'll see a tab at the top of the page called free ebook, and you can download that immediately. I look forward to speaking to you next week. Thank you very much.